Hey everyone, I'm Steven, also known as Dobie. This is my story. Growing up as a kid, I had a very normal life, except for a few little things. Throughout elementary school and into 10th grade, I've been made fun of for my weight. Um, After dealing with that for your entire life, it eventually begins to affect your psyche and just everything in general. And just like constantly wondering if people think you're weird or questioning like if anyone likes you at all, it really gets to you. After dealing with that my entire life, I began to develop OCD tendencies when I was in 6th grade. Constantly feeling the need to repeat myself over and over again until I said a word perfectly. Honestly, OCD is, in my opinion, one of the worst things that anybody could ever have to go through. I know there are other anxiety disorders and just like mental disorders that are worse, but having gone through OCD, it really gets to you. OCD, if you don't know what it is obsessive compulsive disorder. It can be compared to a broken record. The song plays until it hits a certain spot, then repeats itself over and over again, never stopping. That is how my brain works. If someone pokes fun at me, like for my weight, that thought will repeat itself over and over again in my head for hours, sometimes days. And basically, it's just a horrible form of torture that doesn't go away. People who poke fun at me don't realize at the time how much it affects me internally and in my brain, but I don't blame them at all. I would always laugh it off. I'd laugh with people and make fun of myself just so that people would kind of stop making fun of me and just poking jokes, and basically they had no idea what they're doing, but it really affects people. So all I ask is that you don't really, or that you watch what you say to people, because you never know how like drastically it'll affect them. My OCD and insecurities never got any better after all the stuff I've gone through. The OCD got so bad at one point that I thought that if I didn't perform a ritual perfectly, that something horrible would happen to one of my family members, or something horrible would just like somebody would die that I loved, or that just somebody would be like cause like great pain. Um, and that's one of the worst feelings that you could ever have, because as I'm doing the ritual, I constantly am thinking like, if I don't do this perfectly, something horrible is going to happen, and someone's going to die, or I'm gonna die, or I know it sounds crazy, but that's just what OCD does to you. Some examples of things I would do are I would sit in my basement constantly saying a phrase over and over again, trying to blink a certain amount of times, like perfectly, like just like sitting there, like staring at a specific spot on a wall. Um, if I didn't end up doing those perfectly, those thoughts would stay in my mind for literally days, sometimes weeks, until I performed that like certain ritual like perfectly. It got to the point where I would sit in my basement and scream at myself and just like tell myself to stop and like scream and cry and just like break down, and it was mentally just exhausting, and I was physically exhausted after all of that, and it's just a horrible thing to like go through. I've grown up constantly thinking nothing I've done is good enough. I know I'm pretty nerdy, I'm athletic, I'm very reserved, I'm artistic, I'm funny, and I probably have the biggest heart out of anybody that you could ever imagine. If I see a stray animal on the road, or just like on the side of the road, like walking around or something, I constantly think about that for the rest of the day. Like, is that animal like cold? Is it like starving? Like, is it in pain basically? And I don't know, just like everything affects me tremendously, and I can't I don't know, I have just tremendous sympathy for like basically anything or anyone. People make fun of me for playing PS3 and posting videos on YouTube. Those two things are my escape from reality. I can be completely myself and not be judged for like any of it. Um, I love to make people laugh. Some people even say that I make their day on a regular basis. That makes me feel insanely like, I don't know, it just makes me feel really good. It also brings me great sorrow because at the end of the day, when I'm sitting in my basement, like home alone, I wonder if anyone in the real world like even cares about me or remembers that I even exist. My entire life I've never been in a set group. I've always like floated from group to group, feeling like the fifth wheel constantly. Nobody's invited me to group events, parties, or anything. Um, Now that everyone's away at college, I'm even more alone, sitting in my basement, basically paralyzed with anxiety and thinking that I'm just this huge loser that has no friends. When you have anxiety, it just eats at you and eats at you, and you just have this huge pit in your stomach, and it just doesn't go away. Most of you probably have no idea that I've gone through any of this. I always put a smile on my face. People say that I have a great smile. I love acting silly. I act like nothing's wrong, and I act like I have an amazing life. I know I'm very blessed to have such a safe home to live in, but there's much more to life and to my life that people just don't see. OCD has made it nearly impossible to live a normal life. At its worst, I couldn't say a complete sentence without having to repeat a misspoken word over and over again while trying to blink 20 times perfectly and move my arm in a certain position, or like move my like muscle in a perfect position, or I don't know, it's just crazy. Right now I'm attending GVSU and I'm trying to major in graphic design. When it comes to graphic design, I'll sit there and spend hours on a certain section of a design until it's absolutely perfect. I'll stare at it over and over again and I'm never satisfied. I see every single flaw until I finish that flaw, or like completely like perfect that flaw in the design. My basement is insanely neat, and if there's a messed up blanket on the floor, I start to feel anxious. I basically just can't live in clutter. You're probably looking at me right now like I'm absolutely insane. Like, why do you do that stuff? It's easy to just get over it. It's definitely not easy to just get over it. You can't just get over it. Anybody with a mental disorder knows you can't just get over it by yourself. If you need help, you need help, and you gotta find a way to get help. And I've been blessed that my parents are able to like pay for like counseling and like therapy and stuff, because you cannot get over this by yourself. There was a time in my psychology class last semester where my psychology professor read a stat saying that 1 in 4 people in the United States have a mental disorder. Some random big mouth kid decided that he was going to speak up and say, "What? So you're saying that someone in this room has a mental disorder?" And he was just dumbfounded by it. And that pissed me off beyond belief, because it's like, yes, obviously someone in this classroom of 40 people has a mental disorder. It completely just it enraged me, because I was like, how the hell are you so ignorant that you don't know that someone in this class has a mental disorder? Mental disorders can be a living hell. OCD has been horrible for me throughout my high school baseball career also. Being the designated hitter on the varsity baseball team sucked. Every time I got up to bat, I would hit a ground ball, be thrown out at first, and then have to go sit on the bench for 2 or 3 innings, thinking about that. Ground out the entire time, constantly thinking about it, never could get it out of my head. And then I'd have to go back up and bat again and end up doing the same thing, because I was so worried about doing it that I would end up doing it again. There were times where I'd be sitting at third base playing my defensive position, and normally you're supposed to be thinking about every situation that could be happening, every possible place the ball could go, where you're supposed to throw the ball if it comes to you, just basically everything. If you're a baseball player, you know what I'm talking about. Instead of thinking about all that stuff, I would be doing my blinking rituals, or I would be thinking an OCD thought, or I would just be in some other world, and that's just impossible to play baseball with. To this very day, I constantly wonder if people think I'm just weird, or if they think I'm fat, or basically I just constantly think that people judge me, and it's just not a good thing. I'm so afraid to talk to new people because I feel they will ignore me. Doubting myself, even though I know I'm one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, is a horrible situation for me. All the stress built up by anxiety and OCD really gets to me. It has created a monster within me that needs to be killed. I get angry easily, and I've emotionally hurt people, like the people that I love the most, and I'm definitely not proud of it. If you ever need to talk about something happening in your life, there is help out there for you. You just have to ask. I'm struggling right now more than ever, especially my first college year, but I will keep plugging away no matter what, because life should be experienced to the fullest, not sitting in a basement sad and alone. Once again, I just want to say OCD is definitely not the worst thing that you can go through. I haven't had anybody die in my family. I haven't had any super close friends die. I don't know. I definitely haven't experienced what a lot of people have experienced, and I haven't experienced nearly as horrible things as other people have. And I realize that I'm not the strongest person in the world. There are people out there who are definitely mentally stronger than me, but I just wanted to make this so that people know basically what I'm going through, just so that I just wanted to get it out there. I guarantee there are a lot of people who have no idea I'm going through all this, and I just want to say thank you to all my friends who have been there for me and who've supported me through just all this. And yeah, just I love you guys, and basically just I love you guys.